Hey, what's going on? Sub here. Wanted to talk a little bit today about console audio. So this is kind of the warm up to my bigger video that I'm probably going to do later this week or this weekend, talking about kind of demonstrating how doing a walkthrough on how to get the best audio on your console, Xbox or PlayStation, with Black Ops 6's Warzone integration. So wanted to spend just a few minutes kind of looking at where we are with audio right now, how well it works in kind of the different ways that you can mess with audio, and then I'm gonna just kind of describe the best way to get audio for you before I do the more in-depth video about it. So um, basically, with Black Ops 6, they've created this new system. They've brought us this new system called HRTF, or head related transfer function, which basically is their way of describing how audio goes from from out here in the world, right? How it translates through our ears into our brain, and how our brain translates then that data, that sound data, into the sounds that we perceive, right? So we have to take the sound waves that hit us and then turn that into sound that our brain understands, and our brain tells us, oh, this is a footstep, or this is a gunshot over there, in terms of the game. And so there's a whole science behind it. It's very technical. It's very interesting. But they're taking their first stab at it. They partnered with a third party company that does this. And so this system that they've created is really their first foray into kind of introducing viable sound as into the game itself, instead of having third party third party tools and resources like Dolby Atmos or Sony Pulse being the only resources that we have. Um, so earlier this year, I did a video on audio on console, and we looked at how to use Dolby Atmos specifically, or the Astro Mix amp, to kind of tune the sound for us in the game, and we can have better footsteps and all of that. Well, what they've done this year is they've redone just about everything. And what I mean by that is not just they introduced this whole headphone thing, this HRFT. Um, in what they've done is they've rebalanced audio completely, right? So it used to be most of the footsteps, like 90% of footsteps, sat in 100 and in about 120 hertz, right? And then you had all these other noises that went around it, but most of the footsteps lived in that space there. And then there were ways to kind of tone down those sounds, right? And then they didn't distribute they kind of distributed everything over surround sound, but they weren't quite perfect, so the front channel wasn't really very active. um this year they've gone, and it seems to be that they've redistributed footsteps kind of more broadly across the spectrum, and it's a little bit more sensitive to what people are walking on now, which, to be honest, is probably a good thing, because it makes the sounds a lot more clear. The footsteps are clearer when you hear them. And what I've seen is, instead of the majority of, instead of like the actual footstep sound being one sound, they've kind of retooled it. So now, um, unlike in past tunes where, I've suggested that you keep, you kind of buff the sound at 120 hertz, and you kind of quiet down everything around it. Um, that's not going to help. That's going to actually kill off a lot of sounds that you need. And they've also rebalanced it, so they've toned down some of the low end noise in the game. And they've done a pretty good job on it. So overall, I think the sound, now that it's working, right, is an improvement over past games. But it's not perfect for a lot of reasons, many of which is it depends on your own, headset. My IEMs will sound different than your Astro A40s. And if you bought a pair of Sennheisers, they're going to sound different too. So what I want to kind of dive into a little bit here is, what do we need to do to really get the best sound going, and how kind of have the best settings for you to kind of work on. So the big question is this advanced headphone, or this enhanced headphone setting, worth it? Like, is it worth using? And to be honest, the answer is yes. And there's a couple of factors that they've gone in, and now that it's working, when this game, when Warzone launched, I don't think this setting worked. I think it was broken or not enabled properly, and that was a problem, right? But they've since fixed it, and I think they will make more improvements over time. And a lot of times with these black box systems, there are fixes that go on behind the scenes that don't actually get updated through the game because the system is not updated by Call of Duty. It's updated by this third party. So we may have seen updates to this without even realizing it from the server. Um, but it does sound way better than it did on launch day, which is great. Basically, the biggest advantage that you get with this advanced headphone system is you get this thing called live mixing, where they prioritize different sounds for you during the course of the game. And what I've found is that it really does right now give a significant priority to footsteps, which is great, right? That's what we want. We want more footstep sounds. And it quiets down a lot of the extraneous noises, the AC unit humming or distant airplanes or explosions. Those things are not very prevalent when there are footsteps in the area. They're not eliminated, but they're not very prevalent. So I definitely recommend turning that on. However, there are still issues, right? It's not perfect. And the problem with that is, as I've mentioned before in my previous videos, and I'll put a link to that series down below. The audio is not designed for your headphones. Okay. What I mean by that is every set of headphones is going to is built differently. It has different response tendencies. Some headphones are bass boosted, so they amplify low end noises, right, like explosions. And others are just not tuned well. So, and I've mentioned before, Gadgetry Tech is a great guy who does a lot of work on kind of on sound engineering and trying to understand where all the sounds live in Warzone. We used his information in our past video, and again, he's done a nice Black Ops 6 baseline for us, and it's a distinct different line. It looks very different, and as a result, what I found is you really have to tune your headset, tune the audio for your headset without interfering with the live, with the advanced headphone mode. So how does that work? So Dolby Atmos, for example, is what I use on my console specifically. And the way that Dolby Atmos works is when you load it up, you have a couple of different options. You have an EQ. You can set your own EQ, we'll get to that in just a second. And then it has some different options to turn on, right? One is spatial audio, and one is sound equalization. Okay. Unlike on a PC, those systems are very specific to how Dolby Atmos does it. And what I think happens, and it's probably been happening to some people where they don't realize it, is this advanced audio system. It's a spatial audio system. It's creating its own Dolby system, right? So it doesn't. You shouldn't be mixing that with other spatial audio systems because they conflict with one another. And I think what happens for a lot of people is they might have something like this going on in the background. Maybe they set up Dolby. Maybe they're using a mix amp. They have some setting that that they haven't checked, set up properly. And we'll talk more about that specifically in the next video. But you have to turn all that off, right? The only thing that you need is to be able to correct the audio via the EQ for your headphones, right? So basically, you need to set your Dolby system, your Dolby Atmos. You need to go on your Squig link, go through that process. How to do it's in the video down below, and then adjust, set your EQ to kind of compensate for that audio, and layer that over top of the game and its spatial audio system. Because not only does it give you this, does it create a good spatial audio table, which I think is very important in this, but it also uses this prioritization, which kind of does what the you know, what PC tuning has been trying to do for the last couple of years, but it does it kind of on the fly, right? So if there's no ambient, you know, if there's no immediate sound that you have to pay attention to, you get a lot of the ambient noise, you get some faraway gunshots, you get airplanes and that sort of thing. But when there's footsteps and things going on in your immediate proximity, the game actually does a very good job of highlighting that and kind of quieting everything else down as you play, which is actually terrific, especially since on console are a little bit limited on the things you can adjust versus a PC. So those two systems together, an EQ, a basic EQ with no specialized optimizations, no EQ balancing, none of that, combined with the advanced headphone mode, is providing to me the best source, right? So you have the EQ balances out the natural tendencies of your headset, or IEMs or whatever you're using, and then the spatial audio and live mixing comes from the Call of Duty application itself, and they don't conflict with each other. And so I have had phenomenal luck. And to be honest, it sounds, you know, my system last night was sounding uh, on my Arcticus 7 Pros were sounding really close to what I have when I was testing Arta's Wars system yesterday, and it's surprising how effective it can be when everything is balanced right. So so that yeah, at a very high level is the sauce. You need to balance EQ for your specific headphones, and then you need to turn on and let Call of Duty do the spatial audio and do their live mixing system for you. I haven't tested the paid option yet. I will probably do that this week. So in the next video, I will have discussion on that as well. But at a base level, do those two things, and you're going to be competing with PCs on audio quality. And so, yeah, that's what I got for you. Check it out. If you have any questions, drop them in the description below, or drop them in the comments below. Description for other videos I'll put in there. And yeah, look out for the next video drop, and I'll catch you on that one.